You might get 1,000 likes on one of your images on social media, but it won't have anywhere near the impact of one good, decent, honest critique on your shot. Posting on social media feels great, but it will not make you a better photographer. Let me explain why. First of all, we need to take a look at social media praise. Likes on social media give you a dopamine hit. They make you feel good about yourself and about your work. The problem is they will not make you grow as a photographer. The simple fact is that most people on social media are afraid to give a genuine, honest critique of your work, invited or not. And the reason for that is they don't like to spread negativity. If they give you a like, it's quite possible you will give them a like in their work. If you leave a negative comment, you may block them. And that's unfortunately how social media works, but it also highlights the fact that social media is not the place to grow your photography. A couple of years ago, I started a theme on Twitter called Brutally Honest Monday. And the idea was simple. Any of my followers could upload an image to my thread and any of my other followers could critique it. And the results were quite interesting. Whilst there were a few very, very good photographers giving really genuine critique, there were an equal number of people simply saying, "Oh, I love this photo, this is a great photo," and not leaving any reasons as to why they thought it was good, or indeed giving any criticism at all of that image. And this highlights the problem of social media, the fear of negativity. Now, the ones that actually gave good critiques to an image, these turned into actual individual threads on their own. The photographer would ask back, "Well, how do you feel that I could have improved this? What could I have done technically?" And the photographer critiquing would reply, giving information, and whole individual images would become alive with really useful, honest critique and information. It was a really, really positive place to be. Now, to highlight the problem with social media critiquing, have a look at this picture. This is by far my most liked picture. I put it on 500 pixels a long time ago, and within a few hours it had gone to #1. It's also my most stolen picture, which, to be honest, these days I take somewhat as a compliment. But the question is this image perfect? And the answer is, of course it's not. However, if I were to ask for an honest critique on it, even after 40 years, I would probably feel some negativity if I did get an honest critique on it. It's certainly not perfect. There are certainly things that could be improved with it, but would I embrace that honest critique of it? And this is the crux of the problem. As a photographer, an honest critique can feel like an attack on our work. We are, by our very own nature, invested in our work, invested in our creativity. And when somebody comes along and tells us, "Well, you could have done slightly better," we take that as a negative. We take it personally. I do. Even after 40 years of photography, I still take criticism or critique personally. I shouldn't, but I do. It's a natural instinct and it's hard to get out of. But if you can, you are opening yourself up to learning so much more. Many photographers misunderstand critique as negativity or harshness or even toxicity, and it really isn't. And this is why social media in general is not a great place to actually get your work critiqued. You will get a range of comments from overwhelming praise all the way through to toxic negativity. And very few of them will give you what you're looking for. Genuine feedback on what you could improve and genuine feedback on what's actually really good and what you've nailed. It's also important to note that on social media, most comments are personal opinions. A real genuine critique is not a personal opinion. It's informed information from a peer about your work. A well-structured critique will help you improve your technical ability, your creative ability, and even your editing abilities. However, it's also important to know where your critique is coming from. A critique from an established photographer or other creative with a body of work behind them is going to hold so much more weight than some random person on the internet on a social media site with no profile picture and no work telling you how you should have taken this picture. You need to find peers that have experience and knowledge, and they're the people that you should trust with your critiques. Now let's take an example of a new photographer. He or she's been photographing for a year or so. They're beginning to understand the idea of aperture, shutter speed, ISO, all that. And they go down to a local site and do some portraits of their partner or a model. The light's quite low and the camera naturally opens its aperture, so you've got a nice wide aperture. The images come out as you would expect. Beautiful blurred background, real distance between the subject and the background, and a real sort of feeling of depth. They post them on social media and they get rave reviews, lots of great comments, lots of likes, and they think to themselves, yeah, I'm quite good at this portrait lark. I think I will try some more and see if I can get better at it. So they go out a few days later or a few weeks later and they go to another beautiful location. Let's say, for example, a beach. It's a bright sunny day. They haven't really mastered understanding the histogram or understanding exposure yet, so they're on shutter priority. The camera shuts the aperture all the way down to f8, f11, perhaps even f16. It's a bright sunny day out there. Those images come out and the background is razor sharp, as is the subject. The person posts them on social media and they get nothing. They get a few likes, no positive comments, and they struggle to understand why. And this is the problem. You can put good photos or you can put bad photos on social media. Good photos will get overwhelming praise, but bad photos will not get comments as to how you could have improved it. Now, this is an example for a beginner, but it goes all the way through to even the most experienced of people. Photography is a lifelong learning exercise. Social media will not give you good information, but a really good critique will delve really deeply into everything about that image, how it was shot, the technical aspects, the creative aspects. There are many, many areas of which an image could be critiqued. It's not just about saying, yes, that's a nice picture, I think you should have used a smaller aperture. It's about delving deep into that picture and going beyond the basics. This is why getting a proper critique from a real peer is so important. So let's delve a little deeper into what a good critique should be about. And first and foremost, there's the initial impression, that impact it has on the viewer, if at all. Does it have an impact? Does it have emotion? Does it make the viewer question what's going on? Is there a story to this image? Does the image engage the viewer, or does it just fall flat? Is it just a snapshot that doesn't really have anything behind it? Next, you look at the creativity, the composition. Are there multiple layers of composition, or is it a single very subtle composition leading the eye to the subject? Is there a main subject, or are there multiple subjects with one having a priority? Is the image telling a story? Does it question the viewer? Is the viewer saying, what the hell's happening here? What led us to this situation? Why is this image happening? You need to understand the technical aspects. A critique should look at the shutter speed, the aperture, the ISO, the focus point. Is it focused at the right place? Is the shutter speed deliberately slow to induce blur, such as in this image, or should it have been a higher shutter speed to freeze the motion? It should look at the lighting. Has the photographer deliberately picked this type of lighting to create this mood and emotion in an image, or is it just the light that was available at the time? It's also important to critique the editing. This is an area which is not often critiqued and really should be. If you saw my video last month about avoiding tropes and cliches in photography, there was one particular thing that really triggers me, and this is people shooting the aurora in relatively southern latitudes and then massively boosting the saturation in post-production just so you can see it in the sky. Now, to me, if you couldn't see it with the visible eye very well, then you shouldn't be massively boosting what a sensor can see. And I think the same is true in editing. My style has always been bright, colourful and saturated, but it's very easy to oversaturate. And in recent years, Lightroom has added two absolute sledgehammer of editing tools to the Develop module. You've got dehaze and you've got clarity. Both of these, used carefully, a few degrees left or right, are really subtle tools, but people tend to slide them way to the right and get this massive and unnatural boost in the mid-tone contrast that just doesn't look good. A good edited image should be striking, but it should also be subtle. And you can't make a striking image if you don't have good composition. So you need to have good critique on your composition as well. A good critique will challenge you to improve in all areas, from taking the image, from understanding the composition and the lighting, to the mood, the emotion, all the way through to the editing. It's vital in a photographer's development. It's also important to know that critique is subjective. Keyboard warriors on Facebook and other social media sites often come across as informed experts in their field with little to say for it, and they think their opinion is above everyone else's. But the simple fact is, if you take two experienced photographers and get them both to critique a single image, they will have very different views on it. And it's you as a learning photographer that needs to take those views and amalgamate them into your thoughts and how you can improve what you want to convey with your camera. Now, having said all of this, getting good critique can be quite hard. As I said, social media is not necessarily at all a good place to find it. So where can we find a good critique? Well, the first and most obvious place is your local camera club. There are some caveats to this. Camera clubs can be very cliquey, and if you join as a new member, it can often take a while for you to be ingratiated into their cliques, if you like. Whilst you're outside of those cliques, you might find that very few people will give you honest opinion about your work. So camera clubs can be really good, but you need to ingratiate yourself into them first of all. You can't just rock up, start showing your images and expect to get genuine, honest critique. Now, I've said the internet is not necessarily a good place to find critique, but it can be. You need to find some of the smaller, more professionally run groups on Facebook or even real old-style forums. These places are well run, well moderated. They kick out the keyboard warriors, they kick out the so-called experts with opinions, and they just concentrate on giving genuine, honest critique. There are groups around like this. You have to dig deep to find them, and they do not have 20, 30, 40,000 members. When you get to that size, they become difficult to manage and they become full of opinionated keyboard warriors. Find the smaller groups, find the real friendly groups. It might be themed towards your camera or it might be themed towards the genre of photography that you shoot in, but the smaller groups will genuinely help you. Now, I've mentioned my Brutally Honest Monday. I do it once a month on Twitter. You can get genuine critique there. It's quite possible you won't. A lot of people will post images and not get any critique at all, but it is a good place to try and find a critique. And I'll leave a link to my Twitter in the description below. As well as my Twitter Brutally Honest critique, I also have a Brutally Honest critique service on my website. For that, I go into all the details that I've listed before about the emotion of the image, the composition, the subject, the technical aspects, the creative aspects, and the editing. And I will give you a deep, deep dive into your image that hopefully will help you learn and improve your photography. If you're interested in that, I've left a link in the description, and that will take you to my website where you can learn some more about it. So what are my final thoughts on honest critique in photography? Well, first of all, it's really, really important to learn photography from peers, to get genuine, honest critique from your peers. As I said, in general, social media is not a good place to learn. So hunt out good critique, hunt out people whose work you really admire and ask them if they will give you honest appraisal of your work. Some may not have the time, and don't take that as a negative. Just accept it and see if you can find somebody else. There will be people out there with good bodies of work that will be happy to give you genuine, honest critique. Get into the mindset that likes and shares on social media and comments on social media, overwhelmingly positive comments, are not going to help your photography. Yes, it's a nice dopamine hit, but also post your photography to forums and groups where you will get genuine feedback from genuine peers. And embrace any perceived negativity as constructive. Learn from that negativity and go out and see if you can improve upon it. This is why real critique is vital to your photography. So let me know in the comments below, have you ever had a genuine critique on your photography? Have you had a critique and found it quite abrasive and found that you're reacting quite negatively to it? I certainly have. Let me know in the comments your experience. And if you've enjoyed this video, a thumbs up would be brilliant. A subscription would be even better. And I will see you in the next one.